Hey there! Welcome to the Gaia update for the new moon in Scorpio that's happening on Sunday, October 27th, 2019. I'm Adrienne Elise. Well, we are deep into Scorpio season. Such a powerful energy this year with Mercury preparing to take a retrograde. And just a few days after this new moon, Mercury will take that retrograde. As it stations retrograde, it's right there next to Venus. So Mercury is taking a deep dive into the Scorpio energy, into the shadows, into the mysteries, into maybe the muck, but also to retrieve the treasures underneath. And these treasures have to do with our intuitive gifts, our intuition, the feminine side of ourselves that may have been disgraced, cast aside, demonized, low self-worth. It's time to resolve and completely heal everything we've been working on ever since last year when Venus took its intense retrograde in Scorpio at this time last year. So Mercury and Venus are both in Scorpio right now. Mercury slowing down. They've been kind of playing tag team because they were close together, and then Mercury is a little faster, so it kind of got ahead, and then now it's slowing for its retrograde, and Venus is catching up. And for this incredibly potent, powerful message from the universe, as they are they are together, Mercury and Venus, as Mercury stations retrograde. This tells us what the retrograde is about, and we are cleaning up that negative shadow of the feminine within all of us and on the planet. So what we're being shown in this Scorpio energy, the deeper the things that we're need to find, the deeper they're hidden in our subconscious, the more we need to go on this deep dive. So we've done so much work here, and it's kind of like, I'm kind of feeling this message coming through. It's like, oh, really again? Like, are we ever going to be through with this shadow clearing stuff, And there's a huge message saying you've done a ton of work to get here to this place, to be listening, to be paying attention. Don't stop now. You're so close to the threshold. There's such a huge energy over these next 6 months of a line in the sand crossing over to a whole new paradigm, to a whole new future. We have no idea what it is, but every astrological chart I've worked with has something very dynamic happening individually for them. Our planets are all kind of, all very unique, our birth chart, but everybody seems to have something very dynamic, either right at the beginning of 2020 or in the spring of 2020. And it's telling us that we are all crossing over some sort of threshold into the unknown. And this Scorpio energy is really bringing it up. So leading up to this full moon, the main energy, and we feel it all the way to the end of the month, is that Mercury is in square to the nodes of the moon and the south node not too far from Saturn. So really intense energy because Mars is about let's go, let's do it. It's our will force. It's our impetus for action. And in square to the nodes, which is like our future karma and our past karma, it always brings a feeling. Anything in square to the nodes is kind of like that feeling of being stuck. But this is so incredibly dynamic because Mars at the timing of all this, right before this retrograde and Scorpio season, the Scorpio new moon, and Mars coming into the square with the nodes, and Saturn is like, okay, are you ready to really face what's holding you back? Are you ready to really get into the truth? Are you ready to really understand and be shown in absolute clarity what's still the strings, the invisible strings, the cobwebs, the stuff from the past? South Node and Saturn, they're together, both elements of the past and karma and obstacles and dragging what's dragging us behind, what we're dragging with us, the old stories that are keeping us from gaining that momentum. And so really powerful, but very illuminating Mars square the nodes, where you can be shown exactly, you're coming right up against the wall and the writing's on the wall and there it is in front of you, and it's everything that's been keeping you from making the leap into the new, into the next chapter, into that new paradigm. And for the souls that I'm working with, out of this heavy psychic energy that has become so much a part of our life that we don't even realize we're in it. Trying to process subconsciously the pain of the collective consciousness as we go through this shift. And these souls it is becoming a requirement to break the contracts that are keeping you in these low vibrations, because like loyalty contracts where it's like, okay, well, how can I leave this person behind, that kind of thing, and the family and the groups and all of that. It's definitely part of what's holding us back, but we know that. See, it's becoming so incredibly obvious we can't ignore it anymore. And that's a lot of what this Mars transit and the Scorpio energy is about. It's becoming too uncomfortable for us to stay in the lower paradigm. And, that's kind of the way it happens. If you think about it, every time you've made a big change in your life, even if it was totally for the good, it's not easy to make those changes. And those patterns, even though they're unhealthy, that we've been used to, or our old situations, we know they're not working anymore, but they're comfortable. It's what we know. And we just keep going back into those old patterns, but it's getting too uncomfortable, like psychic pain and pressure, to the point where it's like, but that's the deal, right? Every time you've made a big change in your life, you had to get uncomfortable first. And that's what's going on. We're getting really, really comfortable looking at these really dark and hidden places within us with the Scorpio energy. So for this new moon in Scorpio, that's the most prominent energy, is this Mars in square to Saturn in the nodes. Mars and Saturn, man, when they interact, it's like butting heads. They're both action planets. They both want to move forward, but Saturn wants to do it in a deliberate way that's thought and planned out and, step by step. And Mars just wants to plow through, And so it's interesting because we've got some momentum here, and then it's like, you've just, I can see a picture of what's coming to mind is like a bird of prey that's used for falconry, and they're kept on these jesses, these leashes. And so they can fly like 10 feet. And then it's like, so you're like, all that effort to get off the ground. And this Mars transit feels like, get back here. You don't know what you're doing, but it's showing us. It's showing us what's still tethering us to these old systems and old beliefs and that heavy energy. And we got to face it if we're going to ever get out of it. So it's a time right now, if you feel like you have been wrestling with these heavy collective energies throughout your lifetime, but particularly in the last few years, as the intensity has grown, this is your like deep schooling into your deepest psychic places, into the roots of what's keeping you in the lower energies. And it's like, we've got to go on this dive to be able to, it's like we've got to go deeper into these energies in order to be set free of them. So with Mars in Libra, for these transits, it means that these things that are going to be shown to us, the crystal clear writing on the wall, could come through our relationships. It could be our relationships, our intimate relationships, business relationships, family relationships, any level of relationships, or maybe just our relationship to ourself and our true self and our soul, our higher self, our essence. Maybe that's the relationship showdown. That's where this is all going down. But that's where we're going to be shown these things. And it's incredibly potent. So Mercury and Venus will be exactly conjunct during this new moon, as Mercury prepares for that retrograde. Very, very powerful, because we can get some real hints and clues with Mercury and Venus together about kind of like, where are we at in our process of cleaning up our feminine and sorting out and clearing all these past lives where we've been demonized for who we really are. We've been hiding our sensitive side. We've been pretending we're something different, that Aries, Chiron and Aries energy. So Mercury and Venus are also bringing some messages potentially around what this whole season's about, what this whole last year's about, this whole time on the planet is about. Really potent and powerful energy. And we're also going to be feeling, we talked about Mars in square to Saturn and the nodes. Now, but the backdrop energy is important, because in the backdrop, we've got this Saturn sextile Neptune. They're coming really close into their sextile. This is one of the big energies, the last big transit that's happening. That's the 2019 energies. Saturn, our manifested world, and the restrictions and limitations of that scenario. This is, beating yourself up against a wall in this reality. And then, but in a sweet sextile, which is about mutual beneficent energies and learning from each other and working together to find creative solutions. And so Saturn is in sextile with Neptune. And that's about like, hey, can we jimmy the lock on this reality? Because like what we know as a true spiritual truth is just not represented in this world of our physical reality. And you have to like work really hard to maintain it, even though you know it's the truth of who you are as a higher dimensional being. There's so much more to this, and yet we just get pulled back into this dense materialism that just, thick stuff to deal with, in this world. Just get pulled back into that lower matrix, pulled back into that grid, pulled back into your prison, and but Saturn and Neptune saying, hey, maybe we can jimmy the lock on this. Maybe we can do a little of this, adjust our world, adjust our vision, communicate, bring a communication between the heaven and earth timelines, bring a communication between these worlds. Because that's really what 2020 is about. It's like the changing of the guard, making this world more true to the spiritual laws, and the physical laws and spiritual laws need to align so that we can live closer to our truth and get on with our spiritual evolution. Like, enough of this garbage, right? So pretty powerful magical energy. Those planets are exactly sextile at the beginning, the second week of November. So they're getting really close in that sextile. And so really cool energy behind the deep dive, behind the going into the shadows, behind the finding, maybe uncomfortable truths, facing where we're not moving forward, issues coming up in all of our relationships, showing us what we haven't seen that's programmed in our subconscious that is keeps yanking us back into our psychological prison. Very powerful, intense time. But if we can take advantage of this time, of this Scorpio season, of this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, of this Mars transit with the nodes and Saturn, it's just like that writing on the wall, the crystal clarity, and be present. Don't run from this. Be present, be here. Know that you got to go a little deeper before you can get set free to the next level. And that's what we're doing here. And we're in it together. And we're doing this deep dive together as we have this, the bigger picture, the bigger backdrop of life telling us, hey, we can do this. We can do this. We're on the path. We're on the journey. We made it this far. Let's face the music, continue to face these truths that are coming forward, and be present with what's going on, because we have one goal here, and that is freedom. The deal is like sometimes these souls, I talked about this, psychic pain gets so intense, and there's an energy of like, get me out of here. Like, I'm on the wrong planet. I'm with the wrong people. How did I get here? I know there's so much more to me and so much more to this world than this bullshit reality. Get me out of here, and it's hard because as a soul, as an advanced soul, that you're so much more. And yet you're like, okay, but here I am trapped in this crazy lower paradigm. But if you got out of this paradigm and out of this life, you wouldn't get out of the paradigm, right? Like we actually, in order to break free of this earth planet, we have to be on the earth. We have to be incarnated, right? We have to be in, and this is really, really helpful, really, really helpful energy and information for those of you who are feeling this, who might feel this frustration and trapped feeling that comes up with this Mars transit. Whatever's making you feel trapped and in that prison, psychological or energetic or physical blockages in your life, that you have created on some level because you need that structure in order to break free completely, break free spiritually, break free completely to the higher energies. So whatever's keeping you restrained, that's your tool, right? And we can't, if we got out of this earth, like so many souls feel like, God, get me out of here, right? But if you were, then you couldn't break free. You'd still be in prison, but you don't have a body to break free with. So we can only break free from here, from kind of maybe the Scorpio energy. We got to go deeper into what keeps us imprisoned and the shadowy energies in order to break free. But there is one reason why you're here on the planet, and that's to break free from, your individual spiritual evolution is about claiming your autonomy and your freedom from the lower vibrational frequencies, from the karma, from the wheel of samsara, and we cannot break free after, in between life and death. We have to do it here while we're on the planet. And so we got to take advantage of this time, and we got to show up for ourselves right now. And we got to just face it and be present with what's going on, because there's so much work that can happen in this astrology to catapult you across that line and into that new paradigm. But we got to kind of stick with it right now and be and just really pay attention, be willing, be like, okay, show me my prison so I can break free. And that's what Mars square the nodes and Saturn is trying to do. Then at the end, after this new moon, Mars will go into its square with Pluto. So starts the incredibly another month. Every month it's like, whoa, September so intense. Oh, October, 2020. Like, it's just kind of, intensity is the name of the game. So can we just be present with it and like kind of, use that Mars energy of like attack, like, yeah, bring it, like I've been, everything for lifetimes evolutions is right here because I'm so close to breaking free out of this psychological mind trap that I've allowed myself to be in for far too long. And I'm so close, I'm not going to give up now. And so to work with these transits as a way to, with our will engaged and being present and willing to look at the shadowy stuff that's coming up in order to clear it and be more free. So I hope you can join me for an activation for this new moon in Scorpio. And it happens it happens at night in my time on the Sunday. So 6 hours before this new moon is when I'm going to do the activation at 3 p.m. Mountain Time in the U.S. That's 2 p.m. on the West Coast, and that would be 5 p.m. on the East Coast. And so we'll kind of just be like right moving into this new moon in Scorpio. And new moons are always a new start. And even though we're in this intensity and it just keeps getting intense, it's kind of like when you feel like you have a breakthrough, it gives you the strength to continue on the journey. And that's what this new moon in Scorpio is. It's like a breakthrough into kind of the nitty gritty, the dirty work of what needs to happen for our ultimate shift. And so it's an incredibly potent time, and I'm really happy to be here with you. We can experience it together and support each other through this time. So I hope you can join that live activation. We'll just be really present for this this gateway portal experience of this new moon in Scorpio. And it's $10. It's a guided meditation. It's an hour. I try to keep it to an hour. And if you can't make the live event at 3 p.m. Mountain Time on Sunday, the 27th, then you can catch the replay anytime and still get the energy and get your questions answered. So maybe I'll see you there at the live activation or on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.